Well, good evening. You are listening to the Trifecta, where UFOs, paranormal, and cryptids collide, the official podcast of Rocky Mountain Ranch Research. I am your host, Katie Paige. I hope your week has been filled with more wonder than worry so far this week. Um, Tonight we have special Colorado friends, John C. Craig and his wife EJ, and they're going to talk to us about, they're out there in the field actually taking steps to do something to help all of us get scientific data and really good information on UFOs, UAP, and they have invented the UFO Track. And they've also written a couple great books on how to use your smartphone with UFOs and that. So it's going to be a really interesting and educational episode this week. Just a few quick reminders. If you have questions for John or EJ or both, please write your questions in all uppercase so we know that they're questions. And I hope that you guys check out Rocky Mountain Ranch Research. .org to stay up to date with all the latest events and happenings out there. Hi, Susan. Thanks for being here tonight. So without further ado, let's please welcome John and EJ to the show. Hi, EJ. Hi, John. Thank you both so much for being here. I hope you're having a good week so far.
Great.
Great week.
Glad to be here.
Well, I am so excited about the show, and there's so much we have to cover in an hour. I know we're going to be running out of time, like always. But I'm really curious, John. I'm going to start with John. How did you get involved in UFOs to begin with?
Well, I'm kind of one of those that have had a lifetime of experiences because I keep looking up. In high school,
that's the first step, people look up.
That's what we're always telling people, keep looking up. But in high school, my brother and I had an experience where came out of a movie theater, and we were walking down an alley in the evening about 11 o'clock. We saw looked like a fireball going across the sky. I thought, wow, what is that? And we were watching, and it suddenly made a U-turn. And fireballs make a U-turn.
Fireballs don't make. Was this in Colorado?
No, it was in Nebraska, Norfolk, Nebraska, and it made another turn. And then ever since then, I've wondered just how high that thing was. I had the feeling it was right at the edge of the upper atmosphere, and that got me thinking about what we call a no-fly zone. We'll cover that, I'm sure, a little bit here.
Yeah. Oh, that's interesting. And what year did you say that was, in the 70s?
Yeah, that was way back in 1969.
Oh, 69.
Yeah.
69. That's a great year.
It's going backwards.
No, I love those older cases and the older observations, because now, our atmosphere is filled with Starlink and space junk and all sorts of rocket debris and things, and we'll cover that a little bit. And EJ, what about you?
My father was an aerospace engineer, so he had me looking up all the time. He was part of Skylab, Apollo, and Viking. And so we were always staring at the sky. I never really saw anything until I think it was 1987. And I was outside in Boise, Idaho. And I looked up, and this huge thing just came over, just low and slow and silent, but it's huge. And I was looking at it from the underside, and I saw what looked like the shape of like the space shuttle, and it was roughly the same size. And for years and years, I could not figure out what it was, but it was low enough that I could see rivets and vents and stuff on the fuselage. And it was just really, really bizarre. And then it was, I don't know, maybe 10 years ago. That was like 1987, but only about 10 years ago, I walked into the Aerospace Museum in, I want to say, is it Henderson, Kansas? And something like that. Anyways, I looked up, and there was an SR-71 hanging from the ceiling. And I had this episode of, oh my God, there it is again. So what I saw flying over was a low, slow, silent SR-71. And they're not really known for being low or slow or silent. So I think what I saw was something from, I don't know, maybe the Secret Space Program or a cover memory or something. I don't know what, but I saw something, and so did several other people. I wasn't alone. And it was really, really, I wasn't as shocked at that time because I could see things that made me think it was man-made, so I wasn't that shocked. But it was when I got with John, and he asked if I'd ever seen anything. And he goes,
That wouldn't make sense.
And he goes,
Yeah.
silent?
No, that was going to be my question to you. I've been to that museum, by the way, with the SR hanging in Nebraska. It's a great museum. I love it.
Mhm.
And I don't know if you call them museum center. Maybe they're centers. But I was going to ask you that if a craft or a UAP has like rivets or vents or certain things, do you automatically just assume they're our own and not from outside this planet?
It was the day that the space shuttle was supposed to land. That's why I can
Oh.
actually trace it back to the actual day. And I thought, oh, maybe I just saw the space shuttle go over. So I was in a terrestrial mindset.
Right.
But because I could see vents and rivets, I mean, even right now, just standing next to like the airport here, when a plane flies over, it's really hard to see vents and rivets and things like that. It's just really odd. So I don't know. It just was going over low and slow and silent, and I could see things that made me think it was man-made. So I wasn't all that excited about it until John asked me it was low and slow and silent.
Yeah.
That's not normal.
Yeah, it kind of reminds me of, looking into the Rocky Mountain Ranch in the mid-'70s. We have all these reports of what seem like might be helicopters flying often, in Elbert County with these animal mutilations, but they were silent. And I'm like, do we have silent helicopters, especially in the 70s? I mean, still they would kick up dirt and dust and, so it's kind of interesting. And you wonder what exactly, if we're 30, 40 years more advanced than what the average person knows, you're right. It could be our own tech, but black access that's not, known yet. So that's so cool. And you guys, what I love about the two of you together working on the science side of things and really trying to find data, triangulate sightings and things like that. So let's just get right into it. I'm going to bring this up right here. You guys made the MUFON Journal. What month issue is this?
January.
Just came out.
This just came out. All right, guys. So the MUFON Journal that just came out for the new year. Here we have John and EJ empowering MUFON investigators with real-time data. And so let's talk a little bit about what UFO Track's mission is. And I'm going to put you guys over here. There we go.
Okay.
So our mission is to develop a real-time rapid response network that can turn isolated sightings into verified events using the power of technology and teamwork. So basically, we want to be, as the article said, the first responders, the people that are getting called while this thing is happening, so that we can notify everybody around us that it's happening and get multiple witnesses, multiple camera angles, just multiple points, vantage points, collecting data simultaneously, so that we can finally collect some data that can be studied and analyzed and triangulated, and we can determine things like speed, altitude, and size. And we've never had that before, or very, very isolated, rare instances where you've had two cameras at the same time pointing at the same object.
MUFON and other research groups have been all about after the fact investigations, which is really great.
Yeah.
But we're trying to do something additional in real time. We're trying to get the alerts out so that people can get out and we can get multiple witnesses and multiple cameras. And then we suggest on good sightings that they go ahead and report to MUFON for the analysis that needs, but kind of in a cooperative mode with MUFON.
Yeah, we just want to hand MUFON really, really good data so that they can really go deep with it.
That's right. And we're lucky enough to have a UFO track here in our home. This is what they look like. And we've already had an event. So can we talk kind of about what happened there? And it turned out to be kind of a bigger deal than we even anticipated. So this is what the UFO track or UFO sense looks like. I like the new design of it. So it can just, like, for us, it sits right in our windowsill. So they're very portable and easy. But let's talk about the event that we had. Who wants to take that on?
You might be a good one too.
Yeah, you might. But basically, there was an event at Katie and Tony's, and the alarm went off. The beep 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 went off, and they went outside and looked up, but it was raining outside, right? And so there was nothing to see in the sky, but we get instantaneous alerts. So we knew that there was something going on. So we talked to them later, and they said that there had been, you had talked to people at NORAD, and you had talked to people who had sent you pictures from a hot air balloon event where there were anomalous things in the sky. So we're not sure if those events were related, but they were certainly coincidental and really interesting. So that we've had, since we started this around 6 months ago, we've had about 37 alerts and events. This is the members map, the people that have UFO sense.
Okay. So this is the members that have the UFO track device right now. And as you can see, this is, across the country. So the more units you get, the more we can get the reports in real time and start to triangulate. Now this map here, these are the Colorado specific. Are these events or are these?
These are events. And you can see that some of these are brighter than the others. Some have faded kind of into the background. And basically I'm aging the events on this map. So the older they are, the more transparent they are. The fresher they are, the brighter they are. So the most recent event there is the right in the middle of green one that came in less than a week ago.
Colorado Springs again.
No, actually that was
Cripple Creek. That was Cripple Creek.
That was Cripple Creek, right? And he was a public person, somebody that was not already familiar with UFO Track. He had heard about us from one of the Screaming Cows videos, and he wrote down report.ufotrack.com, and he sent in a report from the public. And because it was a public person that I didn't know, I had to vet the person. So the alerts automatically triggered email into their inbox. And before I could get to my inbox, he had already, this is the report.ufotrack.com form, but he had already responded to that, asking for more information, and it attached an image of what he saw in the sky. So it was not just a random nothing. I vetted him instantly. But so he got put on the sightings report, and we did an investigation with him, and I put up a video on that. If you go, I don't know if you can go back to the sightings report, but if you do, click on any one of those little UFO icons. If there's additional data, either videos or pictures, or news reports, or whoever's, whether there are videos or somebody else's, all you have to do is click the little UFO icon, and you can see the data that we've gathered for it.
Wow, that's awesome. That's really, really good information. Go ahead, John.
Yeah, the real goal of getting as many members as we can. Right now, we get a report in, and there's not a lot of other members that get the alert. But as we get more and more members and get the map covered with members, we can, imagine the Phoenix Lights event. If you remember back then, if somebody was outside, they were lucky enough to happen to see the thing going over, and a lot of people did. But today, if the UFO track, UFO sensors and stuff were in the Phoenix area, there could have been hundreds of people, and everybody's got a camera in their pocket nowadays with cell phone. So we could have had an amazing amount of data in the Phoenix Lights event, and that would have changed things tremendously. There was only 2 or 3 videos taken or pictures taken of the thing. Today we could do a lot better, and that's kind of that's the vision I have in my mind for how this is going to work.
Yeah, no, I think that's fantastic, and I really want to talk, EJ and John, about the event that happened over the San Luis Valley. And the second time we had a UFO track event here at our house, when it went off, you're alerted, so you went out on the deck and you're looking up, and this was a clear day, and we didn't see anything visually. But just because you don't see anything visually, because what was happening, I'm looking up and I'm kind of, I don't know if these things can cloak or morph or what, but that footage that you caught out there in Guffey at the Feinsteins, can you guys kind of walk our listeners through that evening and what you guys captured that night?
let me start, honey. We have 2 cameras that are real low light sensitive cameras, Sony special cameras. So we like to go out and do a sky watch and get from a couple miles distance apart. Then we can do the triangulation and really determine distance and velocity and size. So we had 2 cameras. One was set up at the house, and we drove, a couple of us drove out about a little over 2 miles away to do the other camera. And EJ's camera at the house is the one that really got the really good stuff, because we had a little bit of a hill and it was a little bit hard to get the triangulation because some of the images were blocked. But you want to talk about what you found, honey?
Well, we were using the UFO CQ device, and the first thing we did, which is another device that we have, to initiate CE5s if that's possible, but we're using the UFO CQ device, and we said, UFOs, please show yourself. Mm-hmm. And so we put that out there and we put it to the side, and we didn't really think about it again. But right after we started, which was right after sunset, the viewfinder just started lighting up like a Christmas tree, which means that there was lights moving around that it could see, but we could stare at the same spot on the mountain and we could not see those lights. So the viewfinder, the low light camera, was picking it up. My friend that was with me, she had a night vision scope, and she could see those lights there, but there were dozens of lights just flying in and around the valley area. I mean, dozens of lights, and you could just see that they were flying in and around each other. They were making little formations and things like that. But
they had the 2, and you could see the one go boom, really fast through it. And for the listeners and viewers, if you go to the Rocky Mountain Ranch Research YouTube channel, there are actually 2 videos on that channel. This is the one we're talking about right now. It's called UFO Light Show with Parallax Evidence, San Luis Valley. This is John and EJ. This is when they were triangulating out there in Guffey, out towards the San Luis Valley area. And you can see the footage on that episode. And I have to tell you, the fact, the friend that you were with, Anniversary, she has military grade goggles. So she was able to see those through that, and you could see them through the camera viewfinder, but not with your naked eye. What do you guys think about that? What do you think you're viewing? I mean, it's amazing footage.
We did do some triangulation, and some of them were 30 miles away, I think it was.
Yeah, we did the triangulation. It was 28 miles from me and 30 miles from John, and straight west roughly, which is smack dab over the San Luis Valley. And the thing that was interesting is Katie had a report from somebody else who was on the other side of the San Luis Valley looking backwards, or looking east, and seeing the same lights. So we think that there was some lights. Well, we know they were because we could triangulate how far away they were, flying over the San Luis Valley. I looked and I measured to make sure it wasn't coming out of the Crestone Needle. I know people talk about lights coming out of the Crestone Needle, but that was too far south. So it was the northern end of the valley, but there were just dozens of lights. It's really worth a watch of Katie's channel there with that video, because it's stunning. The number of lights, the way that they were just flying in and around it. There's no military bases over there. The only thing I would give is that they were maybe drones flying around. But when we triangulated them at 27,000 feet, that's higher than drones. Like our personal drone can't go over 400. But this 27,000 feet. Most helicopters don't fly over 5,000, I've heard. So whatever was going... Thank you. Whatever was going around was 27,000 feet, so twice as high as those 14ers that are out there. And they were just buzzing the valley.
Yeah. So, our friend Kendall just, I don't know if it was like a few days before, had sent us video of something he was seeing over the valley as well. And I mean, not to be a conspiracy theorist or anything, but I have theories about Mount Blanca out there in the San Luis Valley. I think there might be a base under there, just like the Dulce. Like it could be the real Dulce base for all we know. I know that the Valley and Crestone in that area, it's crawling with feds and, CIA agents and that, which, I've done some interview with some people that know these things. So I wonder because there's been reports since the, early 60s even of lights going in and out of Mount Blanca right there near the Snippy event where Snippy was mutilated in 67. So it makes me wonder, are those the lights that you're capturing now? Have they just been there for decades? And now we finally have the ability to really capture these things that you can't see with the naked eye. And it's so interesting because if my memory serves me right, I believe that in that footage, you can actually see an aircraft flying through.
Right.
Yeah.
And so you can find that on, the flight radar 24. And you can clearly see the flashing lights. And these lights that you captured, John and EJ, they're completely different. And the way they move and travel about, it's just amazing. And there's a really good video. I can't remember the name of it, but they were capturing very similar things too over Area 51. Same kind of phenomena.
Wow.
Well, and these lights lasted all evening. We did, I think, 4 sets of 20-minute chunks of film, and then the guys came back in anniversary, and I kept filming. And that last video is just absolutely stunning. I'm going to put up a new one where I've actually mapped out the stars, blanked out the stars, so you could see how many lights were actually flashing at that time. And it's crazy. But those at UFO Track, we're trying to get 3 different kinds of UFOs that we think that we can find that nobody else is looking for or have already pre-dismissed. And that's the straight line lights that fly in what we call the no-fly zone. We can triangulate that, and we can figure out if they're flying above where normal planes fly or below where satellites can orbit. There's a nice 80-mile stretch right there. And if we find anything in that stretch, by definition, it's exotic. Whether it's man-made exotic that somebody's going to have to talk about, or if it's just exotic, don't know. But there's this whole area where nothing can fly through except rocks and rockets.
There are a lot of satellites that you can see every night, especially with their low light cameras. But nobody, if there's a strange light that goes across the sky, if it doesn't turn or stop or do anything weird, it's easy to just dismiss it as it's got to be a satellite. And so that happens all the time. But by triangulation, a couple miles apart with these cameras, we can actually calculate the altitude. And if it's below 100 miles, there's no way it's a satellite. And if it's above 20 miles, there's no way it's a balloon or an airplane or any air-breathing aircraft of normal type. So that no-fly zone is really important. That if we can find something in there and prove that it's at that altitude with this math triangulation, then it begs an answer. It demands an explanation. And it could be our own aircraft. It could be something exotic from other planets. We just don't know. But that's kind of data we're trying to get.
I'm curious, a couple questions, like on a very basic level, like how does the UFO track work? What is it picking up? What is it detecting?
Well, the UFO sense has 2 sensors in it. One is an accelerometer that's very sensitive. So if the gravitational field of the Earth changes consistently for 2 seconds, it'll sound off an alert, either heavier or lighter. Kind of like you sense in an elevator when you're starting up. It has to go for a full 2 seconds. So that would rule out vibrations and that kind of stuff. The other sensor, the more important sensor, I think, is the electromagnetic compass kind of a sensor. It can tell if the Earth's magnetic field gets stronger or weaker or changes direction. And I think that's the most important because we've done a lot of research and there are tons and tons of cases where compasses have spun. We could talk about all kinds of cases that
car engines stopped, things like that.
We had a lot of those reports, like especially in the 1970s, and I always find that interesting. We still get them from time to time where the cars will stop or things like that. But either it's due to our technology and the vehicles changing and getting better that we're not getting as many reports, or the UFOs are changing and getting better or something. But I think that's fantastic. But definitely magnetic anomalies all the time. Like you mentioned, spinning compasses, battery drains, even on these high strangeness locations, the Skinwalker Ranch, Rocky Mountain Ranch, and it seems very transient in nature. So are these UFOs, kind of flying and we can't see them with our eyes? And that's what's causing, when we put our drone up at Rocky Mountain Ranch, it was a full charge and it only stayed up for 2 minutes, completely dead battery, was something observing us. Because I do think these UFOs, UAPs observe us sometimes, right? I would like to do something with you guys. Okay, for the beginner who wants to go out on a sky watch and it's sort of like their first time going out, what are some basic tips to really help get good data? Like if you do experience something and if you want to report it somewhere, what is a good practice for people to go out?
Well, one thing would be everybody's got a camera in their pocket, like I said.
Yeah.
And the cell phone cameras, yeah, and cell phone cameras typically aren't really good for high quality pictures of UFOs. People, researchers complain about that. But what we're doing, if you can get multiple people to get videos at the same time, looking at the same object, then we can do the triangulation to get distance, altitude, acceleration, velocity. So the thing that's important if you're out on a night sky watch and you see something is to try to get something in the background, trees, mountains, telephone poles, whatever, and to get as much footage as you can. And even if it's a dot of light in the sky, if somebody else is doing the same thing at a different location, that's where we can get this very valuable data that's been very elusive to get. And so the important thing is to get your exact location down and your exact direction you're looking by filming things in the video. And that's basically it. It's a new way of getting data out of the images that people just haven't been able to do in the past.
How far apart do you need to be? Let's say you're all camping or hanging out in the background, the backyard or whatever, and y'all see something that looks anomalous. How far apart? I'd be like, Joe, run. How far do they have to run?
We did actually catch something when we had our cameras just 26 feet apart, but it was something just it was 1,400 feet away or something like that. But most of the time for satellite or for no-fly zone objects, you need about 2 miles is the minimum.
Oh, wow. So that's pretty far. So you're like, get in your car and go. No, don't speed. But get in your car, safely drive 2 miles away and see if you can still see.
It's got to be like 2 miles away as the crow flies, not just as you turn on roads. But any amount of distance will help. But the thing is to remember to film it. When you get to a point where you've got a novice out in the field, a lot of people don't want to take their eye off the object to look at the phone to turn it on. There is normally an emergency turn on for the phones. If you hit your power button twice on the phone, it goes straight into camera mode.
Oh, I didn't know that.
So, a lot of cameras.
A lot of them. So to try that with your phone, see if you can hit the power button twice and see if it comes up into camera mode. And if you do that, then you don't have to be looking at your
It does. I learned something new right here on the Trifecta.
It's good to practice that so you can do that just automatically when you see something.
When you see something strange in the sky, or even if you see a pretty bird, or if you see a plane or something, just practice that. Just turn it on fast and get it up there and try to click it. So that muscle memory is already there before you are in a high stress event going, oh my gosh, what is it? Because that's where the shaky stuff is all about. So just turn your camera on fast and then and practice, because you never know when something strange is going to be right there. So
yeah, I can't tell you how common that is when you actually do have a sighting, even a cryptid, Bigfoot, doesn't matter if it's a UFO, a ghost, cryptid, anything. How, first of all, people like to dismiss. I know I do when, something paranormal happens or something. I'm like, I always try to find some logical thing to explain it. So I, don't document it because we want to write it off. Same with UFOs. We're watching something. And when I was an investigator for MUFON, one thing that just drove me nuts. People would send in these videos of sightings, and either A, they were way zoomed in, so you got that weird, camera, it's like that, but it's just because it's so zoomed in. But the other thing is they wouldn't film the event clear to the end. So often I'd be writing the witness, how did this exit? Did it shoot off? Did it disappear? Did it what? So that would be my other bit of advice, like run it to the end. I know, John, you mentioned that, but I can't tell you how important that is. Even if it's a little boring and you feel like you're filming it for a good minute or whatever, keep filming until the very end, until you can't see it anymore. Yeah, I know that's a really good tip.
So I did a little math experiment once when I was studying a whole bunch of Project Blue Book. I had a whole case of 700 of the unexplained Project Blue Books. And so I looked at all the durations because that's one of the things that they logged in those Project Blue Book things. And I added it up and I averaged it out. And it said that the average UFO sighting is roughly 20 minutes long. So you might be filming for a little bit. Yeah, believe it or not, that was of that set of 700. Yeah. But the ones that are so instantaneous, probably didn't make it to Project Blue Book. But the ones that were almost 20 minutes long. So UFO sightings can last quite some time.
Wow, that is such an interesting statistic. And you're right. The ones that lasted long made it to Project Blue Book. But shame on me, because the longer somebody observes something anomalous, the more I want to write it off. Like if it, like I have a hard time wrapping my head around that there's going to be extraterrestrials just hanging out in the sky for 20, 30, 40 minutes, but maybe they do. So bad on me. Another thing, too, I think is interesting. So many of my favorite cases that I investigated were daytime sightings. So in, the couple times that our UFO Track, UFO Sense went off, they were daytime sightings. So I think that's something a lot of people just think, oh, UFOs, UAPs, I'm going to look up and skywatch at night. But skywatch in the day, too.
Always just keep looking up. Yeah. When you're out on a walk, keep looking up. So John has some of his most interesting sightings during the day. Some at night.
What is your favorite case, John? One of your daytime cases?
I was going to say that one of the cases that we've had recently that involved multiple not really members, but multiple members. So right now, there's not a lot of members, so it's hard to get the multi-camera, multi-witness events. But we did have one. We had somebody reported a white light during the day up in the blue sky. So we immediately went out because it was a little ways from us, but we found it. We saw it up there, and some other people also did. And so that case turned out to be this really strange shaped balloon. It was kind of like a dumbbell shape, but we researched it, and there is an actual research balloon that shape, but it was fun to do that. Otherwise, my favorite UFO case, wow, I don't know. There's so many. It's hard to pin down anything. It just, better the data, the better the credibility, the more interesting it is to me.
My favorite one of yours is when you called in the UFOs. You did a CE5 before you knew what a CE5 was, and you left your wife home alone. Not me, his first wife. He's made a promise never to do this again.
Working on.
I'm holding him to.
But video.
There was a lot of independent correlation on that case. So it was really quite wild.
Do you want me to tell it real quick, or is?
Yeah, let's hear that one. That's a good story.
It's long, but I'll try to keep it real short. This is 1973. I had an infant daughter and a crib and my wife, and I lived in a mobile home just outside of Lincoln, Nebraska, on parked in the field at a dairy farm. And people had been reporting over the radio UFOs several days in a row, usually in the evening. So the next day I'd turn on the radio and we had another UFO sighting. So I had this crazy idea. I was doing field service work for the railroad. I had a pager, the kind where you would call a telephone number and then you had 5 seconds to talk and you could hear through the pager whatever the person calling in was saying for 5 or 10 seconds. And then I also had this computer, a spare computer that had to be one of the very, very first home computers that I could experiment with in 1973 in my home. But I discovered I could send out radio. If you put on AM headphones, you could hear the pattern of the lights on this home computer. And when you talk to the telephone, that was a radio signal going out all over town. So I did this cryptographic thing where I generated random numbers from the lights on the panel. And I figured if a UFO was monitoring the RF signals from my mobile home, they think, that's weird, and they would probably log it. And then I made a message that says, UFO meet me at top of hill west of Lincoln tonight at 9. And then I cryptographically combined the numbers from the ASCII code of that message plus a thing. It's real technical, but the only way you could ever get that code would be to do an exclusive OR of the two signals, one from the pager and one from the computer. Nobody in the world, no, even the government, wouldn't be able to figure that one out. So I said, okay, maybe the aliens can. And then I realized that the whole experiment was so weird. I just promptly forgot about it. But then later that same day, and I completely forgot about it actually for a long time. But later that day, I went out with a friend and drove around west of Lincoln all over just looking for these UFOs because they'd been seen every night. We didn't see anything, but we came back. I dropped him off in town in Lincoln, came back to my mobile home, and my first wife, Jeannie, at that time, was completely upset. She was freaking out. She said the dogs started barking, the cows at the dairy farm started yelling and stuff. And the TV went to snow and got all weird, and the baby was crying. So I felt really guilty for leaving my wife alone and looking for UFOs, which I didn't find, but she had all this weirdness. So anyway.
She literally had like a Close Encounters of the Third Kind experience.
Well, the next day it fell into place because I listened on the radio, and some lady her whole family had seen some lights. So I got the lady's name and I called her. I said, what did you see? A whole bunch of red flashing lights up on the road, up our long driveway up on the road up there. And we went out in the yard and even watched 4 or 5 people in this family. And I thought maybe they were emergency vehicles. They didn't know. But after a while, it suddenly took off and flew up and flew away, this whole mass of red lights. I said, okay, well, where do you live? It turned out that her house was right on the other side of that road, which is a high spot in the highest hill around Lincoln, basically. Her house was maybe 100 yards and looking northwest towards the lights. About 50 yards further is where my mobile home was. Wow. So at 9 o'clock at night, this lady was watching red lights flashing all around our mobile home while I was out, and I called them in, and I didn't even really make the connection. It was so weird. I didn't make the connection for a long time, but I might have called them in.
Yeah. What I find fascinating is, I don't know what you did there that with the codes and the radio and all that. Have you tried to repeat that?
No, I promised my wife I wouldn't, and I promised EJ I wouldn't unless I completely asked her and let her know what I'm doing. But
that's what.
Let me repeat it. What if we do it?
I'm ready to.
That's what our device UFO CQ is. We do that now with the UFO CQ device. We program it with our cell phone. We say, UFOs, show yourself, or whatever, just come on in.
There it is.
And
is that this one? This one right here that lights up?
Yes.
Yeah, that's actually this one.
Okay.
And it's very bright. Oops, let's see. It's hard to tell on a camera, but it's that.
Yeah, no, I can see it. Let me pull the picture down. Here, John, can you put up the real thing there? Let's see.
Yeah, that's pretty
okay.
bright. It's turning on when I do that. It's there's like 16 very bright LEDs on this one.
You've got it upside down here.
One LED is twice as bright as all 16 of those combined. We found this just recently, the technology to do that. So if you look at this, it blinds you. You see dots for a while if you look at it. So what you do is with your phone, have a special program on the phone. You just set this UFO CQ over on a picnic table or somewhere. And then on your phone, you can type in the message you want and say, start flashing. You can pick the speed, and it flashes Morse code to the sky to send any message you want. And we had a kind of a version of this before with another gadget.
With another device, but yeah.
And we've had 2 anecdotal cases where it seemed to work. Can't prove
Where
it.
Where does one get one of the? Where do you get this device, the UFO CQ?
At UFOTrack.com, and they'll be available in about 2 weeks.
Okay.
We're doing these just like we are the UFO sense. So
how fun is that? And I'm thinking, because we're having some paranormal stuff with our outdoor lights. They went silent for a few months, and just I had it happen last night and the night before, and two significant things happened. The day before, yesterday closed on the old house, and then yesterday started a new part-time job. And I'm like, these are two kind of significant events with the outdoor lights. And it was almost like we're watching, or we know what's going on. I don't know if it's my mom, who it is, a loved one, but it's paranormal in nature. And I'm wondering if your device would also work for paranormal type things. If you're, flashing out to the universe in Morse code, I wonder if it would amp up the light activity we're having here outdoors. I know people, it sounds crazy, but I have a lot of videos. I don't know. They started the weekend after my mom passed away, and it's just been this ongoing random thing. But that is a wonderful idea, trying to communicate in new and creative ways with ET or who knows what. But when we're communicating with the unknown, are there steps that you guys take to kind of ground yourselves, be careful, because we don't know who or what we're calling in?
Yeah, the other CE5 things like Stephen Greer and stuff, they typically are a little bit more.
I can't. Did your audio change? I can't hear you. Maybe the microphone's a little further away.
Okay, is that better?
he was talking about. Can you hear me?
Can you hear either one of us?
Yeah, now you're good. Okay, you're good. That's better.
The other CE5 things like Stephen Greer's things that he does, it might be mental, it might be emotional, who knows, to get the message out. I tend to be a little bit more nuts and bolts with LEDs and bright electronics, but both are probably worth trying. If you don't try, you'll never know. And anything is possible in this field. We really don't know for sure all the answers, of course. So anything is worth trying.
The request that we put out when we've done these is just show yourself, not like try to make contact or anything like that.
Okay.
We've said where we're looking, like towards the Big Dipper, or flash a light. We're flashing lights and they'll flash a light too. We call that communication in kind.
So you have had that where you see a flash of light back when you're calling. I've experienced that many, many, many times. I don't talk a lot about it because it's almost like, those old fashioned little box cameras with the cube flash bulbs.
Right.
You remember those old cameras? We're dating ourselves here. I know. The young listeners are like, what are you talking about? But that's what it's like, but in the sky. So I'll send out either a verbal or mental message, like, hey, we're out there, and then flash, and then it'll be flash, and it'll be flash. And then one time when we were in Pioneer Town, California, we had that cone of silence accompany that. That was freaky. That was really a crazy experience. And of course, we know about iridium flares, and we know satellites. We know satellites can do, flare off of them and things like that. So that's maybe why I don't talk about it a lot, because I'm not positive it's communication. Yeah. But what's interesting about it to me is it's on cue. It's when we're asking. It's not just this random flash out of nowhere. It's always when, I would say 70% of the time, when you're asking or trying, that happens. So that to me is beyond coincidence, and I probably should keep a log. I've never done that before. Maybe that would be a good idea. So you guys have written a couple. See, I told you this hour is going to fly by, and I knew that it would. So I want to get here. So you guys have a couple great books that you can get these guys on Amazon. How to investigate UFOs, UAPs using your smartphone. I want to talk about that here in a second, and also this one, the proactive disclosure strategies to encourage contact. So let's start here. Talk about what we will find in this book here.
Well, the technology keeps changing. The number of apps you can get on the Apple Store or for Android, which is what I have. But for both of those, there are so many tools that you used to have to put them in a cardboard box and put it in your trunk and have, as a UFO investigator, you had all these tools out there in the field. A lot of those can be replaced with your smartphone. There's magnetometers, accelerometers. There's all the sensors are in there. And so some of these apps really tap into those. You can use, well, for instance, if you know that a witness was here and you saw something over there, You can get the GPS location right here with your phone, then go over there and get the GPS location, and then you can measure the distance between them. In fact, I've got a bunch of tools at tools.ufo-track.com that are free that tie into the things with the phone, and anybody can check those out if they'd like. But
the book is about apps that you can get in the store. Our website, tools.ufotrack.com, is programs that John has actually written to make UFO investigation easier. So between both of those, they complement each other.
Yeah, I'm always trying to find something new. I'm a programmer at heart, and so there's always things you can do to help calculate things and find out what's going on. Figure out what planets are visible in the sky, for instance. I got a program that gives you that real fast and easy. You don't have to go to Stellarium. You can put in the date and time and location, and it'll tell you instantly if Venus was in the sky or not, exactly where it was at. But as far as that book is concerned, there's just so many apps. And I wrote a first version of that book a few years ago, and it was so out of date, I had to write a new version of it.
This is the updated version.
Yes, this is the updated version.
And even if you get either version, you need to check whatever apps are available. This gives you the clues to know what apps to look for and how you might use them. So it's a suggestion guide, let's say.
Yeah. I think it's important. There's so many things. I mean, what do you guys think? Are we getting closer to finding answers because of all these new tools that we have?
I hope so.
I think there's so many more cameras looking up that we are going to get, whether it's by design like UFO Track or by accident, but we're going to get multiple cameras on the same event and be able to tell things that just will absolutely, without a doubt, prove that something is anomalous. Disclosure to us means proving that the ETs exist. It's not going back into history and asking for the inventions, that we'll never ever see anyways. But it's to prove that we're not alone, to prove that this is really happening, to be taking it from the fringe area of study where it is and bringing in enough tools to make it mainstream. And I think that is happening. More and more people are looking, more and more people are logging things, more and more people are hungry for answers, more and more people are looking to participate. And again, that's what UFO Track is about. So we have a subscription service so that you get notified. And if you sign up for the subscription service and there's something in your area within 50 to 500 miles, whatever you choose, you're going to get notified. Hopefully you'll jump up with camera in hand and go outside and see if there's something going on. But you don't have to have a device. You can just go out and report. And if you see something, bookmark report.ufotrack.com and preset it up with your email and your longitude and latitude. So all you have to do is say it was an orb headed northwest, and then everybody within 50 to 500 miles of you will get an alert, and they can go out and corroborate you.
Yeah, that's cool. And John, you mentioned eventually hooking the cameras up to the UFO Track, UFO Sense. Can you talk a little bit about that?
Well, we've got several things. Well, we've got the UFO Sense sensor, and we got the UFO CQ that will be on the market real quick, a couple of weeks, and then we've got an idea for an all sky camera that if we can get those going, it's just an idea. It's a napkin idea right now, but I think we can make an all sky camera that's so much lower price than what you can buy on the market right now. And if we can get some of those going that have the camera lenses in there that are on smartphones, you can use some of this technology that we can make these devices. If we could get those as part of this network and then have it come in and automatically send out the text alerts to the people within 50 miles, all of this can add up to getting data that can help push disclosure. I'm so tired of decades and decades of being teased with disclosure.
I know, aren't we all? Right. So Michelle here, you're reading my mind because I was going to ask this exact question. So anything significant with specific constellations in the sky? She says, I saw multiple orbs that flew into Taurus and disappeared one evening. So that's an interesting question. And I have, the constellation where I typically see a lot, But I'm curious about that. EJ and John, have you taken any statistics or data on specific areas or constellations in the sky that are more active?
I don't think we've really pinned any pattern like that down.
We do see more it depends on the time of night when we're filming, and it depends on the direction we're looking. Not necessarily any constellation, but looking directly west, we see tons more.
You can see more
no matter what time of day or night.
Yeah, you can definitely see more satellites towards the direction where the sun is below the horizon, which is kind of the northwest after dark. So we tend to film there, trying to isolate the ones that aren't satellites, and that's an ongoing project.
Wow. Yeah, for me, as much as I would like to see a lot around Orion, because of course, I love the constellation Orion, but Cassiopeia, the big M or W or E, depending on which way you're looking at it.
Yeah.
I always get the flashes, seems to be around there. I don't know why. Yeah. And of course, it's always switching in the sky, but it's always around that constellation. I don't know. It's interesting. So EJ Benno says EJ Earl, I'm assuming Earl Grey Anderson, had a waiter color of 3 aliens behind him in his seating position in his home office. Yeah, synchronicity. Right there. Yeah, there you are.
Stars don't compete; they just shine. And then we believe in you too. Funny story about this. Just today, my little 3-year-old grandson, I figured this looked enough like Spider-Man, which is what he's really into. And I said, "What do you think their names are?" And this little 3-year-old goes, "I don't know. Let's Google it."
That I believe.
So,
Larry, anyway. Moe, and Curly.
Yeah, everybody's gone there. That's the but I
don't have my glasses on. I couldn't see to read that very well. Sorry. That's
Fortunately,
funny.
the giggle factor has been going down.
Oh, there I can read that. What's that?
Fortunately, the giggle factor has been being suppressed more and more and going away, which is really great. And trying to be more serious about the subject, but it's still fun to laugh about it.
Right. And I know John and EJ, and I love the nuts and bolts side of things. I think we need the data, we need scientific study, we need new creative ways to kind of monitor and try to understand what we're observing in the sky. But these things that we're not able to see with our eyes, what do you guys think of the orb phenomenon? Are these UFOs? Are these something different? Do you believe in interdimensional travel? What are your thoughts on that? And we only have 7 minutes left, I think, because I can't see very good without my glasses.
Well, I had an interesting experience back in the 90s where my grandson was in a photo. You could see an orb right by his forehead. And then a few days later had another photo, and it was right by his head. And then I got to thinking, what in the world was that about? But I actually figured it out. We had, in one case, we were making sugar cookies for Christmas. The other, they were making pizza dough, and there was flour in the air. Oh. So I had the experiment where I sprinkled dust in the air.
And it was a flash.
If you have a flash camera and a piece of particle could be real close to it, you'll get an orb.
Right. But that's the tricky thing with those dang orbs. You get dust and bugs, and then you have the security cameras, and you're catching a lot of that stuff. It makes it hard, but at the same time, it's so funny. We were doing a paranormal investigating up in outside of, what is the town? Up in the mountains, Rocky Mountains. But there's a haunted cemetery up there. And the friend I was with, she kept telling me, "Oh, you're going to see fairy lights, these fairy lights." And up here in the Rocky Mountains, we don't have fire bugs or lightning bugs. We don't have them up here. And I'm like, there's no such thing as fairies, kind of being Mrs. I was being skeptical and doubting. And sure as these orbs, they weren't dust, they weren't bugs, they weren't, I don't know what, they were like balls of energy. And then I saw them at the Meadows a couple times. I went out with Trey Hudson and his team at the South Skinwalker, same thing. So I'm just curious, some of these lights that we're able to see with the night vision goggles and picking up with the cameras, are these more orb type anomalies in nature in the way they travel? I mean, some of them are traveling really fast, or are they physical craft? We don't know, but it makes me think more of the orbs kind of thing, like these balls that seem to be, just bouncing all over the place. And if they're just these balls of energy, are they intelligent? That's what I wonder.
If we can rule out the ones that are like the dust and stuff, and there are a lot of cases where there's orbs that we really can't explain. I have a theory, maybe, life can probably, and consciousness can probably exist in a lot of forms. Maybe plasma inside of stars can form into self-contained cells and travel around. That's just a wild theory I've got, but that could explain some orbs. I think the universe is so vast that there's possibilities for just about anything you can imagine somewhere.
Yeah. All right, guys. So we have under 5 minutes left. So talk a little bit about where people can find more information about UFO Track, UFO Sense, and this new great, what did you call it again? I want to get it right. The UFO CQ. What does CQ stand for?
In Morse code and in the old radio connections, tapping out Morse code, if you sent out CQ, those special letters, it's a request for a response. Basically, it says, I'm here. Anybody want to reply? And
the old ham radio greetings too.
Yeah, it's
watch the beginning parts of Contact with the young Ellie.
Because I know I'm going to order a CQ unit because this is fun. So where can people find more information, and what do you guys have on the horizon?
Well, you need to go to ufotrack.com/sales/Katie. You should put that one up.
Oh, yeah, that's right. I forgot to mention that. Yeah, if you want to find a way to support the Trifecta and Rocky Mountain Ranch, John and EJ were gracious enough to do this little program. So I appreciate it. Affiliate program. So they're affiliating the UFO Track and UFO CQ. So yeah, that would be a great way to support the channel too, and support EJ and John's work. So definitely check that out. I know I'm going to get one myself and put it out on the deck and have some fun with that. That's going to be really cool. And I'll report back here and let you guys know if we get any responses. Is there a place people can go to say, let's say they have their CQ unit and they actually get some responses? Is there a way they can, report that and let you guys know?
At report.ufotrack.com, that little form, one of the drop downs is a UFO CQ response. So yes, there absolutely is. So it's see how UFO Track has a hyphen there. If you put a report dot in front of it, that's the online form. Please bookmark that so you've got that really handy, so that in real time, if something's happening, you can go there and just let other people know that something's happening. But one of the responses, because we did have somebody use our cell phone app and said that he thought that he got something. I said, we should put a UFO CQ in that as one of the potential responses on our report. So if somebody feels like there's something going around, then log that there.
You can find all of these links and all the things that we're doing at ufo-track.com, that main URL.
Yeah, so, it's a hub for everything.
Yeah, we've got a page there that covers everything.
And you know what this means, guys, right? In probably a year or two, you're going to have to write a book about all the cool responses that you get. What a fun read that would be, to see the responses that people get across the country, across the world, because by that time you're going to be so huge, you're going to be global, and everybody's going to have their CQ units, and we're all going to be communicating with the ETs.
So 7 countries. The U.S.
That's awesome.
We're in Colorado because that's where our beta testers were. But they are, if you pull up the members map again, they are all over the country, but they are all over the world. So it's very, very exciting. So we can actually start tracking UFO events going all the way across the country, and maybe we'll pick it up overseas and we can watch something go all the way around the world. So
yes, that's fantastic. So I can't thank you guys enough for the work you do. And the two of you always just blow my mind. You put together this data, you put together just wonderful You can see some of the work on the Rocky Mountain Ranch channel, like the lights over the valley. Check it out, because then you can see John and EJ at work. And I'm always so impressed by the work that you do. And I can't thank you guys enough for going out there and tackling it and doing something that's really tangible, that we can experiment with. So thank you both so much for being here. Thank you for all the listeners that tuned in to this conversation. I hope you guys go over there to UFO Track and get your track devices and the CQ device. That's going to be a fun one. And we will see you guys next week on the Trifecta. Everybody have a great rest of your week.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Thank you very much.